Today we got a new update for XDefiant, the Year 1, Season 1, Patch 3 that introduced a handful of things, and in this video we're going to break down what you need to know, what changed, and what was adjusted with this update. So as we go along, drop your thoughts down below, drop a like if you enjoyed the video or you find it at all insightful, and make sure to subscribe for more XDefiant, Black Ops 6, and other FPS coverage. I'd love to have you in the community. Finally, if you'd like to support the channel a little further, you can use code Espresso in the in-game shop if you find any skins or anything interesting at all, but never feel obligated to. Anyways, let's get into it. So this update included a little bit of the following: gameplay changes, game mode changes, faction changes with a substantial one in there, weapon balancing and tuning, device changes, and some miscellaneous adjustments as well. So from top to bottom, let's start out with those gameplay changes. XP boosters were something that, as of recently, it was brought up that while they did change from real time to in-game time on how they counted down, one thing that came up recently was a bug that if you were in the practice zone, that counted as in-game time as well. So you'd end up burning valuable double XP time that obviously you shouldn't be doing so. With this update, XP boosters now no longer count down when you're killing time in that practice zone. They also increased vertical ADS sensitivity for controllers, that aiming up and down is more consistent with aiming left and right, which was one of those changes that I never realized I fully needed, but it definitely was one of those things that now looking back at it, I have had plenty of times where I felt that disparity despite having the same sort of horizontal and vertical sensitivity in terms of numbering. But anyways, game mode changes, we saw a few things tweaked for ranked. Ranked matches now won't start with less than 8 players. This was introduced via a new match cancellation event system where when a lobby is created, that player total of 8 is checked during the map selection, faction selection, and the game start sequences. If a player is not included in any of those states, the match will cancel, players will be kicked out for them to be able to re-queue and find another match, where penalties will not be granted to those still in the game. The player or players who would disconnect would still receive penalties, but it wouldn't penalize those that were sort of casualties of that mishap or conscious effort in leaving the matches. It also, as a sort of footnote, would not change anything if players quit through the middle of the match, but just simply that starting point. They also mentioned the leave button has been nixed from the map voting screen to discourage players from dropping out before the match even starts, so that's a nice little touch as well. For game mode changes and ranked play in particular, CTF has now been added to the ranked play pool with a little bit of different rule sets here. You have 2 5-minute halves, switching sides at each half, and the most flags at the end wins, whereas opposed to in public matches there is that score cap, there is none in the ranked version of CTF. And also, according to yesterday's X debrief, we should have seen fixes for the 0 RP bug and the Charlie 01 errors coming along with that, but these were not necessarily mentioned in the patch notes. So just bear in mind that those should be fixed, but they weren't explicitly stated as of the update notes. Faction changes, we ended up seeing that Echelon's intel suit actually got a pretty solid nerf to it. It now only reveals enemies through walls for the player wearing it, where allies will still be able to see locations on the minimap, but that was one of the big things that, if you had somebody on your team running Echelon's intel suit, that was a big helper there with that. So that's something to be aware of. DeadSec spider bots were previously shocking target players before leaping on their faces. That's now no longer the case. You have that animation and then the sort of face hugging animation. That's when you start to get zapped, which hopefully should give you enough time to either shoot it off, shoot it while it's on, or not deal enough damage to do more than is intended. As for weapon changes, we saw a little bit here across a couple of attachments, and then there was some major shotgun tuning to not just 1, not 2, but all 4 of the shotguns available right now in XDefiant. So firstly, the rapid fire barrel and muzzle booster attachments were fixed, but it's something that as a result kind of now reinstates the nerfs that were intended for these, where beforehand on some weapons like the ACR 6.8 and the AK-47, whereas they were supposed to add more recoil, they actually offered recoil mitigation. So they were kind of backwards, where they also offered that rate of fire increase, but made them steadier in terms of their recoil properties. So very good beforehand, but now you might have that trade-off where you might not want to use the recoil booster as much as maybe you did before. It'll take a little bit of time to dive into this here and dig up just how big a difference this is, but for the time being, it seems like the nerfs were reinstated to the rapid fire barrel and muzzle booster attachments. For the MP7, it had 2 very specific and kind of important changes done to it, where the max magazine capacity for the default mag was changed from 35 to 30, and the rate of fire was dropped from 875 to 850 rounds per minute. So again, on paper, not necessarily a ton ton of changes, but those actually might end up adjusting some of that air quote SMG meta, where you might have more competition from the P90 now, maybe giving the MP5 a little bit more breathing room to kind of make a fight for viable use in comparison to those two as well. But the MP7 got a nerf there in that sense. They also updated the old iron sights that were appearing for certain LVOAC cosmetic skins so that it was changing the optic viewpoint of it, the sizing of which you could see enemies through those iron sights. But as for the shotgun adjustments, the M870 saw buffs to the short range, medium range, sprint out time, hip fire spread range, aim spread range, crouch hip fire spread, crouch aim spread range, crouch slide in air and mantle hip fire spread, and crouch slide. A lot of stuff here that was adjusted in regards to making it a bit more feasible in combat. Same thing with the AA-12, double barrel, and sawed-off shotguns. While not every bit of every one of those weapons was adjusted, every attribute that was adjusted was a buff to those specific weapons. So shotguns, while they may have been a pain beforehand, these are pushing towards a little bit more usable, or they're consciously trying to make them a bit more usable. We'll see in time if that's something that does actually make these more valuable to in-game play, but for right now, those are the adjustments. The pistol grip and the PEQ-15 laser also ended up seeing some adjustments, but those actually reduced the min and max bonuses from 20 to 15%. And finally, some bug fixes. Sticky grenades will now no longer disappear if the player that threw them ends up dying or disconnecting. And miscellaneous stuff here, they fixed an issue preventing players' kill-death ratios from updating properly after completing matches. So that one situation where if you had no deaths, it would show like a 100,000 kill-death ratio. That shouldn't be a case. And also, if your kill-death ratio was like 3, even though you were, say, 24 and 7 or something like that, where it didn't actually properly factor out to be an even 3, those kind of situations should be fixed now. Now, notably, they didn't mention anything about the fixes to career stats, so we'll see when that gets fixed out. But for now, that is the update that was granted here as of today for patch 3 of Season 1. And of course, other changes you have to keep in mind. Daytona isn't a part of this update, but it was added on the back end. It's going to be time gated for this upcoming Friday, likely 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. in the UK, where it'll be launching 1 month exactly after Season 1's launch. This kind of now points towards Rockefeller being introduced on September 2nd, if they stick with that true 1 month marker here. But from the X debrief, we learned a little bit about Daytona, where it's a map made in collaboration with the team behind the crew. It's going to be a progression style map, meaning you'll have the ability to play escort and zone control only, no TDM, domination, hot shot, any of that kind of stuff on that. And the map will be a tight progressive map with sneaky flank routes all throughout. So that's the stuff that's still coming as of this update, but right now isn't available to play just yet. For now, though, that is the update at hand and what this new update changed for basically all facets of the game that were adjusted. So let me know your thoughts down below. What do you guys think of this update? Like it, dislike it, whatever the case, drop your thoughts. But if you guys enjoyed the video, you found it at all insightful, do me a favor, drop a like on it. And of course, if you are new to the channel, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss a single thing regarding all things XDefiant, Black Ops 6, Delta Force Hawk Ops is upcoming here next week for its PC alpha. We'll keep you up to date with all that kind of stuff and more in the FPS space. I'd love to have you. But for now, thanks so much for watching. My name is Espresso. I'll see you later. Take care and peace.